because I actually earned enough credits to, I should have been released 2 months prior to when I was released.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just hit the live button. I was hoping to get that story, and maybe you could recap that real quick.
Yes, I did 16 months on a 2-year sentence at Outerson. So with good behavior, that's 20 months. I didn't have any write-ups, nonviolent, first-time offender. You know, I met all the criteria for FSA. I was programming. I was the clerk for religious services most of my time there. And the warden at the time had a personal issue against people with anything drug related, no matter how minor. And she was taking the FSA eligibility from everyone who had any type of drug related charge. And so she took my FSA eligibility. And I did my admin remedies, my 9, my 10, my 11, no dice. Finally, I was able to talk to an administrator that didn't agree with a lot of things that the warden was doing. And she spoke to someone she personally knows at regional, who then looked at my file and said, wait a minute, she should have been getting FSAs this whole time. And so they fixed me back to FSA eligible. And when they did, 2 days later, I was an immediate release because I had actually overstayed.
I remember you called me that day. Yeah. When you got immediate release. Anyways, guys, this is Federal Prison Talk, but I've got RDAP Dan, I've got Audrey from Fed Phoenix 2, and here comes somebody else. We have another women's prison channel. We have Angie from Angie Talks Prison. It's still Angie Talks Prison, right? Hi, Angie.
Hi. I think it's Prison Talk with Angie. I haven't done it.
Hey, Angie.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, really good.
Hey, Dan.
Hi.
I think
You're back in Washington like I am, right?
Oh, you're in Washington?
Yeah, I'm in Seattle.
Oh, okay, I'm in Yakima.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cheers to Washington.
That's right.
I'm not sure who else is coming in. I did invite 10 people. We'll see if they all show up.
They're
Maybe
lost.
Zach from Life After Prison, Big Weavy from Doing Time with Big Weavy, Rick from Vegas Prison Stories. Matt Cox can't be here, but he'll be here if I do another one. He's flying to Ohio.
Thank God, some of us will get to talk today.
We'll get to talk. Yeah.
That's for you, Matt. Just kidding.
I got Raymond from Liberia. He's got a new prison channel because he did time in an African prison, guys. And I've done a lot of shows with him. He's got very interesting stories about. You think you had it bad at your prison? I don't think so. Wait till you hear how they treat African prisoners. And the reason all this is happening right now is because this guy in the corner, RDAP Dan, because I used to watch him while I was on pretrial.
Thank you.
Yeah, I watched you too, RDAP Dan, before I went in. Yeah.
Well, I'll take all the credit you guys want to give me, but I'll tell you that I have a million people tell me, oh, I'm gonna follow your footsteps. I'm gonna start a channel. I'm gonna help everybody, and then when they get out, I know they had good intentions, but just because I gave you the idea, everybody that's doing it still had to find the time and run with it. So
yeah.
These two ladies below, Dan, they started channels. They just like you did. I helped them before prison. While they're in, we talked, and now they're out, and they've got channels, Dan. So
well, welcome home, and
from me, it went to two women, and
welcome to the YouTube club, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dan, I loved your it was a kind of a more recent one where you told your whole story.
Did I
like from childhood?
Was it on my channel or on somebody else's channel?
It was on it was your channel.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
But you were like sitting in a chair and it was just you were just talking for like 2 hours.
Oh yeah, I think that was an older one. I think I was still in Spokane when I did that. And I might have re-released it again. I haven't put any new content out other than, I think like maybe a month ago I threw one out letting everybody know I moved. I've just been with the consulting side of things, we got lucky with how busy we've stayed with the consulting, kind of getting it on the ground floor on that. So I've been very, very swamped with the narratives, the reference letters, and the prep for the pre-sentence reports takes a lot of time. So I plan on this month to get back into making videos. And I do have a couple of my current clients who are in here watching right now.
Oh, great. Well, anyway, I just wanted you to know how much I loved that one video. I was just
well, thank you so much.
Very transparent, and I think it was great.
Transparency, I think, is if anybody's trying to get out there to be a consultant or help people or whatever your intentions are, there's guys out there that have done some serious time. There's guys that have done a lot of time. There's a lot of women that have done some serious time, but time is time. I got lucky. I served 13 months on a 42-month sentence in a low security prison, and I cooperated. I got a 5K1, and I think if you're going to dive into this industry, we've got to be able to put our biases aside from, what we think people should do or shouldn't do, because the whole idea is to put people in a better position than what they were in prior to going through this. So being open and honest with ourselves on what we're willing to do. That's why a lot of my clients, maybe 5 to 10% of them, are sex offense clients, where in prison, these were people that, we viewed them as worst of the worst. But the reality is a lot of them have mental health issues and addiction issues that need to be dealt with, or else they come back out, and next thing you know, it's your kid or my kid that's having the victim of the crime. So it's important to turn our biases off when we think about who we're going to help for the reasons we're going to help them for.
We have Africa in the house. Raymond from Liberia, who's been in African prisons. Hey, Raymond, how you doing?
Hey, Raymond, welcome.
Hi, Raymond.
Yeah.
Okay, we got an echo, Raymond. Somebody, we have an echo going.
It's Raymond.
Dan, on a 30-month sentence, I did 9 months.
That's fantastic.
It was like,
you're the one that got out that early.
That's amazing.
It was
That's
unreal.
crazy, yeah.
How'd you do it?
It was impeccable timing the whole way. What's that?
I said you didn't jump the fence, did you?
I didn't. And I was on the low side because they weren't doing RDAP in the minimum side. And so I was on the low, even though I was actually camp eligible. So it was
nice.
Easy. Yeah.
And that's the thing, is there's no secret to getting out sooner. That's another thing. A lot of consultants try to make it like we have these secret weapons. And the reality is it's the secret is the proper preparation before you go, qualifying for things like RDAP and getting everything set for your pre-sentence interviews so you can make sure you take full advantage of the FSA credits, because there are certain locations when it comes to FSA eligibility, you can be eligible for FSA credits, but like, let's say me and Sean are both going with a relatively similar sentence, relatively similar sentence length, but Sean's got kids and I don't have kids. We can both take the parenting class, but if Sean has a special needs for it in his pre-sentence report, they'll give him a priority versus me, where it puts me on a waiting list. So having some of this information documented early on in your pre-sentence report, that's really where the keys to success are. Sometimes people look to hire us a day before sentencing, and there's still stuff that can be done, but it really starts to minimize the amount of work that we can take advantage of.
Yeah.
Well, with the survey too, that determines one's needs for FSA classes. It was funny because we had a lot of women.
FSA stands for? Some don't know, please.
First Step Act. First Step Act allows you to earn what's called ETCs, earned time credits. And this is done through good behavior and programming predominantly. But there were a lot of women who didn't have kids, grandkids, nothing, and had a parenting need based on how they answered the survey when they first got to prison on the True Links. But one thing I can say too that a lot of people don't realize when they're trying to earn these FSA credits is if you're on the waiting list for the class, then you're still considered in compliance. So a lot of people that when they first came into Outer Sin were getting upset because they said, it's going to take two years for me to get this class, or 6 months to get in this class, or, but at the end of the day, as long as you've completed your survey and you're actually on the wait list, it's documented that you've asked to be in these classes, then you're just as in compliance as a person who's actually taking the class.
That's good to know.
I've seen a lot of individuals though that are only getting 50% when they're in the compliance phase versus, which is still better than nothing.
Oh yeah.
Until they're actually in class. Is that what
you're talking about? The 10 days versus the 15?
Well, no, if you qualify for 10, they were getting 5. If you qualify for the 15, they were getting 7.5.
Nobody at my camp had that issue that I was aware of. And I did people's legal stuff. So I was pretty up on people's stuff.
I think it is pretty dependent on where you go. Because some places, like some of the lower securities versus the camps, they have such a high population that people they can't get in because of the waiting list. So they're giving them 50% of their whatever their qualifying time would have been until they then they get the full 50. I mean the 400. But that's still a win when you've got somebody that can't get into a class.
Right.
That's right.
Well, and I think
you guys I was going to ask you all to just introduce yourself and plug your channel, and we'll just go in order. Maybe we'll start with Dan.
Sure. Well, thank you again for Sean for having me on once again. My name's Dan Wise, aka RDAP Dan on YouTube. I am the founder and owner of Federal Prison Time Consulting. We offer a consulting service. We started in 2015 after I came home from a 42-month sentence where I only ended up doing 13 months due to a year of RDAP, my regular good time, and 11 months federal halfway house, which I did 4.5 of that on home confinement. We focus our areas specializing on prior to going in the prison system. Once you've taken your plea deal or you're under indictment or under investigation, we work with you what you can do to potentially mitigate circumstances outside of what your attorney might typically focus on. The types of letters you're going to write, what's going to go into your pre-sentence report, understanding not just how RDAP works, but what an addiction really looks like for you versus somebody that might be, behind an alley shooting up heroin. That might not necessarily be the type of addiction you have. We have functioning alcoholics and functioning drug addicts that get up and go to work every day, and you never know that they had an issue. So sometimes information's not brought up during a pre-sentence interview because they're afraid to bring it up. They're embarrassed, whatever those reasons are. We want to make sure that you are truthful during those interviews. And aside from that, I have a passion and love for doing this because I wish there was more information like this when I was going in. So I want to thank everybody that joined us today because it makes other people not have to go through this alone. So thank you guys.
And thank you, Dan. And then I have a question for you guys all after. I'll say it now, Dan, and you can answer it. Sure. In the feds, a paid lawyer or a court-appointed lawyer? Which one do you recommend?
In most cases, I'm going to say you're probably going to get just as good of a deal with an appointed attorney or a CJA attorney. Now, if you're going to go to trial or, if you've got the money and it shows on your PSR, it doesn't matter what your choice is. You're going to have to pay for an attorney if you have the finances. But if you don't have the money and your family is going to go scrounge up every nickel and dime and sell a house and, do everything but prostitute themselves out to get you paid, you're probably going to end up with the same outcome because the federal guidelines are the federal guidelines and negotiating tactics really don't exist. The whole concept of this attorney is going to ride in on this white horse and slay the government, it doesn't really happen. They're going to get a plea deal, they'll offer you the plea deal, and you're going to accept it 99% of the time, and it's going to be the same plea deal you'd have gotten with an appointed attorney. So I would say appointed attorney.
I do too. So next up, Fed Phoenix.
So
about yourself and then answer the question at the end and whatever you want to say.
Sure. So my YouTube channel is Fed Phoenix. I started this channel before I was incarcerated, around the time I got my target letter, letting me know that I was going to prison pretty much. And I initially we built my channel upon the fact that I've done time with a lot of loved ones. So I was very familiar with the correction system, even though I myself at that time had not done time. And I contacted some women who had recently been released from the prison that I expected to go to and ultimately did go to. And that's the information on that channel, but also documents my journey, things like giving up my home and making a lot of lifestyle sacrifices to save money to financially support myself while incarcerated, how I prepared mentally, emotionally, financially, how I prepared my children. Since I've been home from prison, I did 16 months on a 2-year sentence, and I've been home now for a little under 3 months. I'm on probation, no home confinement, no ankle monitor, nothing like that. I've had a little trouble getting into my original channel, so I have a backup channel, Fed Phoenix 2, which is all just one word on that channel, which I've been posting videos since I've been home. I certainly intend to get control over my original channel back soon, and then just continue posting from the original channel. But right now, I'm using a backup channel. I do not do prison consulting. I don't, but what I do is a lot of people will get a hold of me and they will say, what can I expect? How do I prepare my toddlers or my teenagers for this? What do I tell them? How do I have this conversation? What can I do to get the best outcome at my sentencing? What should I wear? Or should I give allocution? Should I not? And I advise people based on my personal experience and the experience of those close to me who've been through this process. And at this point, I'm on the back end, the after prison. And so my content now is really on the Fed Phoenix 2 channel is largely my journey in reentry and also a lot of the experiences and information from when I was incarcerated. So at this point, I'm not doing consulting. I think it would be too time demanding. But for me and everything I got going on, all the moving parts of my life, but I definitely am quite happy to advise people and counsel people the best I can, and try to point them in the right direction and give them information and reassurances for their journey, and also to assist and support the loved ones of those who are incarcerated or becoming incarcerated soon. And as
And
far as lawyer, oh, sorry, Sean. As far as
I was just going
lawyer,
to say, you have a lot of knowledge out there, especially for women, both the ladies in the room. And Katie, I see you in the chat room. Katie needs both of your help too. And Katie, I'll hook you up with them. I know they'll be glad to help you. I've been talking to Katie, but go on. I'm sorry.
oh, you're fine, Sean. As far as paid lawyer, no paid lawyer, I completely agree with RDAP Dan on this one. I mean, if you just have the money, it makes no difference in your world to throw it away, throw it away. But and if you have that much money, you wouldn't qualify for a public defender anyway. But if you qualify for a public defender, that's really your best bet. Because with the Fed, the conversation is not are you going to prison, it's how long are you going to go to prison. And the parameters that of negotiation that exist are the same whether you have a paid lawyer or a public defender, and you're going to get pretty much the same outcome. So instead of spending your money on a lawyer, I strongly advise spend money on, make a trust fund if you're going away for several years for your kids. So every Christmas, little Tommy and Billy get $500, for Christmas, or put money towards your inmate account, or put money in a savings account. So when you come home, you already have an established bank account, which is an important resource in society as being a citizen, but also some seed money to kind of hit the ground running. But I think generally for most people, paid lawyers are a waste of money in the Fed. I
agree. Next up, we're going to go all the way to the other side of the planet and talk to Africa, Liberia. Now, I work with this gentleman. He works for the Wings for Life. He's our director over there in Liberia, but he's been in those prisons in Africa. I want to introduce, and he's got a new channel. So, Raymond, say hello.
No, we have no audio, Raymond.
Yeah, hit your mic.
That's what I was like. Is he blowing kisses at us? What is happening?
I wonder if I have him muted. No? Talk now, Raymond.
All right.
There we go.
Yes. So I say hi to the entire team. My name is Raymond Falabomo, and I serve as the country director for Wings for Life International in Liberia. So basically, I started this entire episode when I went to prison for 3 consecutive days. And with the experience I had, during my time there was so scary, inhumane treatment, I met, people were overcrowded in our prisons, no food, no adequate medication, we were sleeping to where feces were, and a lot of scary things. That's how I got involved with this entire, prison system to see how we can help, mitigate the issue of, the way people are treated, as inmates, and try to make them become productive citizens when they are out. One of the things in our country is the rate of recidivism is at 89%. So we have a lot of recidivists, and many a time, they are pre-trial detainees. They stay there ever so long for minor offenses or minor crimes. And so what Wings is basically doing, or I'm doing, is to see how we can prepare those that are coming out of prison so that they can become productive, so that they will not easily go back, because many a time the ones that go back is because of lack of job, they do not have the means of survivability. So these are things that are strangulating them, and we are there to see how we can help, reduce the number of recidivists we have.
Raymond, how do lawyers come in? Do they have lawyers out there for people going in prison, or do they need one, or how does that work in the court system out there?
So absolutely, there are lawyers here. There are public defenders, but the problem with our society is it is so corrupt that even those that are supposed to serve as public defenders or pro bono lawyers, so to speak, will still want a bribe before they can go into your case, and many a time those that are incarcerated cannot afford, to hire a lawyer. So that strangulates them. It makes a lot of people are staying behind bars, beyond the statutory period. So that's how challenging it is in Liberia.
Okay. Later on, I want to ask you about a typical day in an African prison, because if you guys think you got it bad, a bologna sandwich and being locked up in the shoe would probably be the best day a prisoner ever had in Africa, guys. So Raymond will tell you.
Of course. Our prisons, in fact, many a time they go hungry. They eat once a day, and it's just a plate of rice, absolutely dry. If there is something on it, it's just mad sauce that you can just, it's not nutritional. It can't even, build you up. And so a lot of the guys that are there die because of starvation. That's a serious issue, within our country, because the government says they cannot afford. So most times the only way they eat something, eat a better food, is when a family member at home cooks and bring it out of prison or take it out of prison. That's when that become a holiday or a Christmas for them, so to speak. So many of them goes hungry. I had an experience for just the 3 days I spent.
Yeah, thank you, Raymond, and we'll get back to you. And last but not least, unless I'm waiting on other people, but we have one of my favorites who I got to know her before she went to prison, guys. She's went through it. She's out now. This is Angie.
Hi, everybody. So, again, my name is Angie. I do have a YouTube channel. I haven't been very active on it, to be honest, because luckily I got my career back that I've went to college for and worked really hard for. So I'm back into my career, so it keeps me really busy. So I don't do any prison consulting or anything. I would refer to Dan, actually, for sure. But I do other things. Absolutely. So I do other things. I have, because of my YouTube channel, had women contact me to ask me questions and to get advice and things like that. And I'm always, happy to offer that, any information I have. And I've helped people with personal statements just because I can write well. So I'm available to do editing. But really, I'm just kind of astounded that I was able to get out. Like I said before, when I was talking to Dan, that I got a 30-month sentence, and I only did 9 months. And I got out and I did 5 months in a halfway house and then 1 month home confinement without a monitor or anything. I've been out for just over a year and just worked random jobs until I was able to get my career back. So I've had a lot of luck along the way. One of the things I'm working on right now is I'm writing a book, and I'm really excited about it because so what it is instead of chapters, it's going to be 2 parts. Part 1 is our stories. Part 2 is called Their Stories. And so it'll be people who have been incarcerated and what their story is. And how they got to that place in life, what their childhood was like, what they've been doing, their successes and challenges since they got out. Their stories for part 2 in the same book is stories from a loved one that was affected by our choices. And so I'm really excited about that. And hopefully that'll be done by December. So
nice. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. So life is like ridiculously good, to be honest. I don't feel like I deserve all that I have. One really interesting thing that happened is I can't get off probation. I was given 2 years probation, and I cannot get off probation early because I owe restitution. But I got a call from my probation officer a month ago, and they decided to put me on the lowest of the low probation. So even though I still have, I think it's 16 months left of probation, because I'm on the lowest of the low, they said that I have such a low risk of recidivism. I am able to travel without permission.
Have you filed a motion?
I didn't do anything. They contacted me and said, you're considered our model probationary person, and the government has decided to put you on this special thing, whatever it is.
Have you filed a motion to try to terminate your
I'm sorry. No, I have not, because I owe restitution.
Right. It can still be terminated. Yeah. It's still up to the judge. You would still owe the money, because even after you're off probation, you're still going to owe the money. It's just right now, if you don't pay it, they can actually, it can be a criminal situation after probation is done. It becomes civil. If feel free to reach out to me when we're done. I'd be willing to help you with the motion for free.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Wow.
I had no idea. I always was under the impression that because I owed restitution, that wasn't an option, so that I would stay on probation.
It's a huge misconception, because a lot of attorneys will tell you, but it's not up to probation. Probation can object, but it's ultimately going to be up to the sentencing judge. And if you've been making all of your payments and we can create a good reason as to why, in your situation, it might be a tough battle, because they're giving you full access to travel without permission.
Yeah.
But how much more time do you have?
I'm off probation October 25th of 2024, and I pay $900 a month restitution.
Ooh.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Matt Cox doesn't even pay that much, I don't think, does he?
They told me that's what I have to pay.
Yeah, that's it is what it is, but
I'm good with it. Whatever.
Yeah, if we can get you, you're still going to owe it if you come off of probation, but just not having that, to me, probation, home confinement, things like that, obviously it's one step better than being where you were, but it's still rough, because you'll get in that level of complacency where, the average person spits on the sidewalk and there's no consequences, where we're under a microscope. You spit on a sidewalk and it can, God forbid, land us back in prison. So if you can get off of it, why not make an attempt? And if you do get off, great. Then we can show one more case study that, beating the odds. So let's take a swing.
Yeah. I'm so happy that we're having this conversation, Dan, because like I had no clue. How many other people watching this have no idea that could ever even be an option?
That's why we're all here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Thanks to that Paul guy up in the corner over there.
Well, I want to thank all of you guys, because if you guys don't know me, my name's Sean Cowgill. I did 52 months for wire fraud. It was filing fake taxes for a whole bunch of people, a whole lot. So I got a big restitution, guys. But I had 9 co-defendants. It's $1.7 million. Little old me. But and I was living at a homeless shelter at the time, so I didn't care. Today I care. I don't live in a homeless shelter, but I've kind of done my life's so good today. All these people you guys see on the screen have all been part of my life. Before prison, except for Raymond, but after prison. You guys have all helped me when I've had bad days and real bad days and good days. And you guys, I've shared a lot with you guys. You guys have helped me with my struggles, everything. You guys have all made a difference in my life today. So I thank all of you, and even Raymond. Raymond, even though he's on the other side of the planet, thanks to technology, I talked to Raymond a lot, probably more than you guys. So, but Raymond's been there for me too. All this, technology that brings this world much more closer. RDAP Dan started it all. I used to sit there on pretrial, scared. I had nobody to turn to. Nobody understands me, and there was RDAP Dan. And now all you guys understand me. And anybody watching, this can happen to you too. I know a lot of you guys are facing prison time that watch my channel, and it's a journey, guys. Don't let it be the end of your life. Be the beginning of your new life. And you use this opportunity, guys. This could be a blessing in disguise. This is something that most people don't get, this opportunity to go to prison and work on your body, your soul, your mind, your spirit, and find out the meaning of you. And then you'll find out the meaning of your life. And then you just might find out the meaning of life can be happy. And you get this, it's an opportunity. It's a gift.
Am I at a TED Talks right now?
What's that?
Am I at a TED Talks? That was amazing, Sean.
It's a gift. We get this opportunity, and all those problems, drama, and all that stuff is going to be waiting for you when you get out. But now, when you get out, the new you will. It's the Phoenix rising, right? Right. Audrey?
That's right. That's right. And I tell my people, it is just a slice of your life, and you will get through it because you have to. And with self-surrender, a lot of people are terrified in that moment. They've never been to prison, and it's overwhelming, and it's an emotional thing. But here's the thing. If you're a self-surrender, you've been sentenced. So it is inevitable, a part of your life, that you're going to go to prison. So the day you walk in there, it is time to effing celebrate, because guess what? You're starting to get through this crap that you have to go through to get to the other side. So before you can imagine a wonderful life after prison, or the future you want to build, or the ties you want to re-strengthen, once this part of your life has ended, you have to go through prison to get to that, to get to the other side of the bridge. You got to start walking. And so once you self-surrender, you're cracking open the gates of your new life.
And I know you could talk. I'll speak for you guys because I'm pretty sure anybody could call you. Even Raymond, you want to talk to somebody who's been through some prisons that you don't want to face. Raymond will take your call. He's on Facebook, right, Raymond? I know you'll help people. All you guys have always reached out and helped people. You know, it's not all about money, guys. Pay me $5,000 like a lawyer will, and then I'll talk to you. We're not like that. Are we, guys?
Hey, Sean, can you pull up that question from Katie? I'd like to answer it.
Yeah, sure. And Katie really needs your help, guys. I've been talking to her. I know she does. She says, does anyone know how long you can be on home confinement? I'm on pretrial home confinement, and my case is dragging out. Will they let up on the home confinement? I'm going, I guess, that's her question.
So
she's going crazy,
Yeah.
How long can you be on home confinement? So pretrial, obviously your pretrial home confinement isn't going to count towards any of your time, just to make sure you understand that. Now, because of COVID is now dead, so the whole COVID Relief Act that was in prison is no longer in existence. So technically, the most amount of time you can do on home confinement is 6 months. And typically, the most amount of halfway house time an individual will be given is up to a year. Now, with FSA, that can be extended. But if you're given 12 months of halfway house, the most amount of time you can do on home confinement would be 10% of your sentence. So assuming you haven't been sentenced yet, Katie, let's say
she has not. They're just now doing discovery, I think.
Right. So let's say you're sentenced to 60 months. If you're given a 60-month sentence, you can qualify for up to 12 months of halfway house. And out of that 12 months of halfway house, you would do 6 months in the halfway house and 6 months on home confinement. Because of COVID, through the CARES Act, they removed that and lifted that barrier to where technically you could have done your entire sentence on home confinement through the BOP, but that's no longer, that's been removed. So 6 months is the most amount of time you can do on home confinement per BOP policy.
I hope that helps. And
if that
you
didn't
guys
answer your
don't
question,
mind, I've got all your information there. And if Katie calls me, and can I give out your phone numbers or your Facebook link, Raymond? Because Katie really needs our help, and I don't want to get into her case because that's up to her. What's that?
You can put my phone number right. You can drop it into the live chat.
You bet. Oh, okay. Well, I don't have it handy, but you can.
$4.99 a minute. It doesn't let me chat in here.
I need to give you a tool, I guess, a wrench. That's what they're called.
I don't know, Sean. What kind of tool are you going to give me?
Hey, now, how much time did you do, Dan, again? You were low. That's why.
I'm not putting the knee pads back on, Sean, no matter how hard you ask.
Yeah. Watch out when you go to the lows, guys. People don't really talk about what goes on there, right, Dan? But
it's funny. My daughter had such a big fear about me going to prison. And after I got there and she realized, because I went to a low, not a camp. And when she realized it was no big deal at all, by the first or second week, she was like 13 at the time, and she was making jokes like, "Don't drop the soap, Dad." So you guys have nothing to, unless you're going to a medium or a penitentiary.
Yeah.
And even in those cases, depending on your situation, you might not have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
Hey, I did a video on Don't Drop the Soap, and I've had about a dozen clips from all the movies of Drop the Soap things. You guys might want to check it out.
Everybody in the internet.
Type in Don't Drop the Soap on my channel. I do some comedy videos once in a while, guys. So
I'm pretty sure Joe from After Prison Show dropped the soap.
Yeah. He dropped a few things.
Let's get some clickbait, Sean, for you.
So I want to ask this question regarding the U.S. Why is your country the leading country in terms of incarceration?
Money, my man. Raymond. Money.
Money, yeah, it's all money.
No other
it's a big money maker.
You'll find out how free our country really is when you get in the federal system.
Yeah.
That's why there's been policy reform pushing. I mean, it hasn't passed, obviously, but policy reform, one of the biggest policy reforms, Raymond, is trying to shut down privatized prisons, because it's like a hotel. You know, if you have a hotel with no occupants in there, your hotel rate is going to be very low. So the more people you have in your private prisons, the more you can get in funding, state funding, federal funding.
The more money.
I mean, you knew the answer. I think it's sad. It's because there's a lot of good people. Now, don't get me wrong. Every person I deal with made a mistake. Do they need to go to prison? Maybe, maybe not. But everybody in this room that's in here right now, none of us went to prison because we were, innocent or wrongly accused. Most of us made a bad choice, and we weren't focusing on the consequences that existed. And if we did look at how easy it was to wrap up ourselves in the prison system, we probably would have made better choices to begin with. But I know plenty of people in the States, in the world, that don't know what it's like to wear handcuffs, that don't know where the police station is, and have never been to jail, never will go, because they make better decisions. So for those that are watching that get stuck in the victim mentality, if you're in trouble for something, it's not because somebody told on you. If you got told on, you put yourself in a situation to get told on. So the best way through this, to really serve the least amount of time to get your mind right, is kind of owning your shit and admitting what you could have done differently, and you probably wouldn't have been to prison in the first place. So
there you go. And I also believe these bad decisions, bad choices. To me, I ordered a Big Mac instead of a quarter pounder. That's a bad choice. You did something you thought about. You put your family second, your friends second. You did all this way ahead of that bad choice. I'm sorry, but you could change all that and you could turn that around. But at Wings for Life, we deal with those families you left behind, that you did this to them. Okay, that's in their mind. You did this to them. You're going to prison. You're leaving them. Okay, that's the choice you made. So you got to kind of take accountability. Now you could turn all that around. And I just real quick advice: anybody facing prison time, anybody is in your house right now, every single day, go up to them, hug them, say, "I love you." I don't care if you just had a fight with them, hug them. If you can do it 5 times a day, your kids, even your boss that you hate, you go hug them and say, "I love you." If you don't do that, and you've heard what I said, when you get to prison, you're going to wish you did.
That is true.
One thing I'll say is that one of the letters that I edited for somebody that did their personal statement that they were going to read at sentencing, I had to have a conversation with that person after I read what they wrote, because they were making a lot of excuses, and they were also saying a lot of things like, "Well, my mother needs me here. My family's going to suffer. I got kids." And I said, we all have issues. Like, that means nothing to the judge. Like, you got to take it. What you need to talk about is what you did. Take accountability for it. Nobody cares that your mother is elderly and needs you there. You should have thought about that. You should have cared. The judge doesn't care about that. They want to know that you're actually really caring and taking accountability, like these guys said, for what you did. We don't care how you
today, guys. It starts today. Start looking at your life today. Don't wait till you're out of prison, because that'll never happen. You'll never do it then.
And get rid of the excuses.
Well, I tell people too that your allocution, your personal statement at sentencing, is really your fall on your sword moment. You know what I mean? That's where there is no excuses, there is no justification, there is no circumstances, no matter how legitimate, to try to put your offense to bow tie it and pretty it up. When you give allocution, it is your fall on your sword moment. You need to apologize to your loved ones, because no matter how much you did or didn't do, they have no stake in this, or they had no involvement, or no fault. So whether you see yourself as a victim or not, they are the greater victims regardless, because they will suffer more than you will. So you have to apologize to them, apologize to the courts that you've put yourself in a situation to take their time and resources to prosecute you and deal with you. And you need to identify your victims. And a lot of people have charges like mine where where your PSI says it was a victimless offense, right? Well, my charge was using a communications facility to facilitate a drug trafficking offense. This is a fancy way to say you use the Postal Service to move some drugs. So my PSI said it was victimless because, another party said it wasn't even my drugs, and it wasn't. It was I wasn't even the drug dealer. I was the girlfriend of the drug dealer. My whole going to prison was basically because I stuck my head in the sand and was complicit by default. But I tell people, even in that situation, I identified my victims at allocution, and my victims were my community. The community that I had been volunteering in and helping in my day-to-day life. I was also putting in jeopardy by knowingly having a pattern of behavior that enabled and assisted a person who was funneling mountains of narcotics into my community at the same time. So my victims were the people whose homes get broken into because people are out here trying to feed an addiction. My victims were the loved ones of those who choose to do drugs and subsequently die. And now you have a family mourning a loved one and paying for a funeral and these kind of things. So even though my actions at the time were not thinking like, oh, I don't care about my community, or, oh, let this family suffer, or let this person, whatever. That wasn't my thought process, but really I have victims. And so I also apologize to my community, and I apologize to all those who are impacted by the drug epidemic in my community, because I had, by my own complacency, been of assistance in drugs funneling into my community. And I fully understand the harm that does. And I personalize my victims to my judge by saying, the facts of, I have several cousins who are drug addicts. I have an uncle who we had to bury because he was a drug addict. So I personally know firsthand the suffrage that comes from drugs within the community and drug use in the community. And I had still chose to turn a blind eye to my part in that, during that time. And I think my judge really respected that a lot. I think he really, and I try to do some restorative justice before I went to prison. That's something I always advocate for people to do too, and make sure it's mentioned in your PSI. And don't mention that in your allocution, but make sure it's in your PSI. I volunteered more in my community. I tried to be an overwhelmingly positive contributor into my community to try to mitigate some of the negative that I have been part of.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Thank you. That's accountability, guys. That's accountability.
But you can say you're sorry all day, but we all know the old saying, if someone says they're sorry, but their behaviors stay the same, that's not an apology, it's a manipulation. And so definitely before you give allocution and you fall on your sword, try to do some restorative justice. Find a way and make sure, now you don't mention it, but make sure your lawyer mentions, hey, this person, they did something wrong. They're taking responsibility. They know they have consequences, but they are truly remorseful for what they've done. And they've even taken steps and done things to try to mitigate the harm that they've caused.
And actions speak louder than words. I
Absolutely.
did once a week at a food bank. I fed the homeless every Friday night in a van. We went around and handed out sack lunches and sleeping bags and stuff. Alcoholics Anonymous, they had an office. I cleaned their bathrooms every Friday, right? I did stuff like that.
And that's
my
awesome.
Lawyer, like you said, I had my lawyer say it, not me. Well, Judge,
you don't say
I
it.
did that. Let your lawyer speak for you. She's
right. And
there.
you just fall on your sword. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And let your lawyer say she's sorry. And this is what she's doing to try to right her wrongs.
One of the big things when it comes time for doing your allocution versus like your narrative, people will start regurgitating the information that was in their narrative to begin with.
Right.
So we work with our clients in their allocutions, and obviously we give them bullet points of what should go into it. And then they send it over to us on what they want to say. And they're also, the problem I found, even for myself, is unless you're a professional speech giver or you're an actor and you're used to speaking to audiences, the audience you're going to be speaking to is going to be in this jaw-dropping courtroom where you're going to just start mumbling, you forget what you're going to say, you start snotting up and crying. So we work with our clients in aspects of, we get them to go to things like open mic night, practice saying their allocution in front of a live audience, get the marbles out of your mouth. And it's okay to hold the piece of paper while you're reading. But to kind of piggyback on what you said, the accountability factor, a lot of times people think they're in a victimless crime and, well, I don't have any victims. Well, you're leaving behind children, you're leaving behind a wife,
absolutely,
or a husband, and having those individuals identify themselves as your victims, even in the character reference level. The personal narrative, the big thing is also you'll get people that turn in 20, 30 letters. And I just think it's too many,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're making the judge work now.
And if you think about it, usually the letters are being turned in with what's called your sentencing memorandum, which is something your attorney is going to prepare. The government's going to file their sentencing memo, and then you're going to have your sentencing memo. And that's usually when your narrative and your reference letters are submitted. So have 2 to 3, maybe 4 character reference letters that are on point and actually reviewing those, not just having your friends and family write letters and not read it and send it in. We have a free consulting where we can go through your letters with you, but not everybody can hire a consultant. The personal narrative, guys, if you're early on in your case, you really want to get your attorney on the mindset of submitting your personal narrative at the time of the pre-sentence interview during the disciplinary report, because for those of you that don't know what takes place in a pre-sentence interview, this is after you've taken a plea deal or after you've gone to trial and lost. You're going to sit down with U.S. probation, and typically the interview is only 30 minutes to maybe an hour, where probation is going to ask you a bunch of yes and no questions to understand your entire life. And then they're going to take those basic yes or no answers, and they're going to create your life history based on that, where the government is going to submit terabytes worth of information why you're Satan's best friend. If you want to have a shot at getting
they can even pull up your juvenile record, right, Dan?
Well, it's not that they can, they will. It's not going to be used against
There
you.
you go.
But it's not going to hurt you on your points. It's not going to go against your criminal
but
history.
It's an argument that they use against you.
They can use it as this is something along the lines. Having your personal narrative submitted to the probation officer can be very valuable, because it's going to give the probation officer much more information about who you are. Almost every client that we do that with, that we have the personal narrative submitted at the time of the pre-sentence interview, almost every single time probation will make the same statement, I wish every defendant came in this prepared. Now, not to take up too much time on here, because I know Katie's going through this, so this is going to be something Katie's going to be facing at some point. Your attorney is probably going to squawk at this idea. When you tell your attorney, I want to give my personal narrative to U.S. probation, they're going to tell you they don't need to see it. They don't want to see it. We can't do that. All kinds of basically C blocking. And the reality is, it's probably because your attorney hasn't taken a deep dive into what's in your narrative, because they don't honestly think it's going to matter. They don't think it's make a change. But I'll tell you, if you take control and realize that your attorney works for you, that you're the one that's going to go to prison, not your attorney, and if you hold your attorney to a higher standard, making them frustrated, asking them the questions until you get the answers, getting your narrative submitted to that probation report, not only is going to give more information, but it's guaranteeing that the judge is going to read it. Because if the judge doesn't read anything else, the one fucking thing that judge is, excuse my French, guys, the one thing the judge is going to read is the pre-sentence report. And if your narrative is in there, there's even an interview from Michael Santos where he interviewed a federal judge, and the federal judge said, I've never seen that before, but I think it's a great idea because A, the information is getting to them in a timely manner, and B, it shows that the defendant isn't lazy in submitting a letter like the day before sentencing. So these are all things that you could be doing, that when we talk about mitigating outside the circumstances, these are the things that can give a judge the ability to want to go below guidelines. Every single person in this chat room right now that's been sentenced, when that judge walks in the room, he's already got a pretty good idea of what he's going to give you. He's already got it written down. He's already heard the arguments from paper, from the pre-sentence report, from the state, or from the government. So he's come in there already kind of with his mind made up. This is your opportunity to give your allocution and to give the judge a reason to reconsider what type of sentence they should give you. We see people getting probation or highly reduced sentences where the judge said, I was prepared to give you this today, but after reading this, after hearing what you had to say, after seeing your level of accountability beyond the average person, I don't think that a long prison sentence is what needs to happen here. I think that you've actually learned a mistake. So you have to really take heed to what's going on here, because this isn't just for us to get up here and spew hot air to you guys.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say that's sentencing day is probably the most important day of your life, other than maybe getting married or your funeral. This day you will never ever forget, and you're not going to get a second chance to say what you wanted to say or not say, or all these things Dan is talking about. This is the most important day of the rest of your life, as far as I'm concerned, other than maybe getting married or something like that. But you'll never forget your sentence day. Even Raymond knows the day he got sentenced. He remembers, and he didn't get that long of a sentence, but I know he'll never forget that day, guys. So this is very, very important. Listen to everything Dan said.
90 seconds top, Katie. I just wanted to make sure Katie got that answer. 90 seconds top should be your allocution.
I was going to say 5 minutes, but 90 seconds, really? Okay.
See, I kind of feel like, and shoot for the 3-minute bracket and practice saying it. Practice saying it and time yourself. And do this looking in a mirror, making eye contact. And you want to try to make as much eye contact as possible. You do not want to fidget. Any nervousness that makes you want to fidget, wiggle your toes in your shoes. Nobody sees that. And there's, of course, a lot of other things about how you dress and whatever that are very minute things that add up to a big picture. But piggybacking off Dan here, I completely agree with everything he said. And I will say that I tell people your personal narrative is who are you outside of your crime and who were you during the time of your crime? What is your backstory and what were the circumstances when you committed your crime? While being very careful to walk a fine line to not seem as though you're excusing your behavior. But the definitely allocution is a fall on your sword moment. It doesn't matter that your daddy beat you and the neighbor touched you and, whatever, you had a boyfriend who was, intimidating you when you committed your crime. None of that matters at allocution, but that does matter in your personal narrative. And like Dan said, you want to get that to your judge and to probation prior to the PSI. That way your PSI reflects your personal narrative. It's almost like you're giving probation kind of parameters to move their line of questioning through, which will greatly benefit your judge seeing you as an individual in the long run.
Thank you. Can I ask Raymond, can you tell us about your sentencing day, Raymond? I know you didn't get a lot of time, but do you remember what you said to the judge?
So it's actually one of the worst day I ever thought of. You feel, your spirit leaves you when you are told that you are going to jail. Yeah. So it was very, very challenging when that happened to me. Even though the time were very short, I had 3 days there, but the stigma that is carried, by being incarcerated, it's most especially in Africa, is a huge one. People are people feel terrified, identifying with you as someone who is, involved with crime, So it's a very huge thing when it comes to the way we Africans look at, the criminal justice system. It's not unlike the U.S. Your population almost maybe 60 to 50% of your experience the issue of incarceration, but not as compared to that of the African. Even though our criminal, our prison system is absolutely very bad, not as compared to yours, but it carries a very huge stigma. Yeah.
So well, there's certainly a huge stigma here in the States as well. Yeah. But our media promotes that.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing scarier than getting my girlfriend got sentenced before I did by several weeks, and she was the low man on the totem pole. Like everybody in our indictment, there was 13 of us in our indictment. We all thought for sure Shelley was getting probation. And when the judge gave Shelley 13 months, the rest of us were like, oh my God, we're all getting the electric chair. It was there's nothing scarier. I'm not going to lie. I had suicidal thoughts. I didn't know what to tell my kids. Matter of fact, I would lie to my children and tell them that I was a victim, that the government's out to get me, that I'm going to go to prison because I can't afford a pricey attorney. And it wasn't until after prison that I came home and came clean with my kids. And they were pretty pissed because they were like, we defended you. We told you you didn't do this. And it's very common for us to not want to appear different in our children's eyes than the superhero that they've envisioned. But if your object and goal in life as a parent is to protect your kids and to put them in a better situation than what they're in, giving them an unrealistic, irrational fear of law enforcement, things of this nature, because now they just think everybody's out to get them. So you're not doing your kids any favors by minimizing your role and your actions in what led you into the situation that got you to this point.
Dan, that reminds me of a question that comes up a lot when I talk to people. At what age should you tell your children the truth? Now, they're going to hear it at school. If you don't tell them, who knows? Is it 5? Is it 10 years old? Do you even want to tell them the truth? Let me ask you guys that one.
In my opinion, and you guys can chime in, it's relevant to the mindset and the child's understanding and able to compute thoughts. If you've got a 5-year-old, 6-year-old that's like super with it and they're asking very intelligent questions, then sure. But if you've got a kid that doesn't comprehend what's going on, you're better off telling them, I'm going to go into timeout. Daddy did the same thing when you do what you're not told to do and you get sent to your room, or you get a smack on the butt or whatever it might be. You've got to explain it to them at a level that they can understand. My kids were definitely old enough to understand, and I met people in prison that even while they were when they would go to visitation, they would convince their kids that they were at like a military camp.
Yeah.
Or daddy's going to go away for work for a year and a half.
I'm going to work for the government for 12 cents an hour. Yeah.
Yep. And then they get on the phone and they're talking to you, and this call's from a federal inmate. That recording that comes on periodically. So there's going to be zero benefit from lying to them, because you're not doing it for them. You're ultimately doing it for you. We ask our clients the question, would you ever do anything to hurt your children? Oh, of course not. Of course not. And well, you're going to prison. You broke the law. You're now leaving them, and you're hurting your family. A lot of the men that we deal with think while they're in prison, they're still going to run things. Oh, I'm going to.
Yeah. I hear them on the phone all the time, running that household.
And they're just not. You've got these women that have lived a certain life, and the women are terrified too. But these women find out real quick that they're stronger than they thought, and they find an inner power to the point where when my clients get out, the relationships are usually stronger. And now the spouse is involved with finances, writing checks, knows what the day-to-day is. Like, they're never going to have the wool pulled over their head again.
Yeah,
so,
your role has been replaced while you're doing time.
Yeah, they're the mother and the father and the housekeeper and the bill maker, and running you're in prison. You can't control your life on the outside while you're behind bars on a 15-minute phone call once every other couple of days. It's just impossible.
Yeah. And I definitely, when my door got kicked in, I had a teenager and a toddler. So two very different age frames, and now I have a 20-year-old and a 6-year-old. But, definitely at the time, me and the teenager had a very honest, age-appropriate conversation. With the toddler going in, I explained to him a couple months ahead of time that mommy was going to go away for a little while. I love you. I will call you and be able to talk to you on the phone. I may be able to have some video visits with you. And I said, it's like when we get on, on Facebook and talk to this person or that person. I said, but mommy's going to be gone for a while. Mommy got in trouble. And so now mommy has to go away. Mommy has to go to grown-up timeout, is what my youngest one was told. And he didn't really, all the different moving parts of my situation were way too complex for his age group. So we had watched an episode of Bubble Guppies where the officer pulls over a speeder, And I knew that was something he understood. So I said, remember that time I got a speeding ticket, which ironically I got a speeding ticket. And he said, yeah. And I said, remember the Bubble Guppies, arrested the person and put him in timeout in jail for a while. And he said, yeah. I said, well, that's what's happening to mommy. I'm going to be in jail for a while, and I'm going to be in timeout. And if you asked him today, he'd probably say, yeah, my mom got a speeding ticket, so she had to go to prison to grown-up timeout. You ask my 20-year-old, she can, she was at my sentencing, she was at my plea hearing. She can tell you blow by blow, so much information. And because she was at an age where she could understand that, and our kids are not oblivious to what's going on. If daddy or mommy has mountains of cash and no 9-to-5, particularly if they're over, 11, 12 years old, they're definitely, at least to some degree, at least subconsciously aware that something abnormal is happening. And I think that addressing that and minimizing their confusion, giving them as much age appropriate clarity as possible is really something that has to be a focal point. And, when I was in prison, I was very, with the teenager, I let her know, I'm trying to get these FSAs back, and I'm trying to get cares, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, because I wanted her to see that I didn't just go to prison and go, oh, and I get to kick my feet up and not be a parent. I would, help with various life issues. I was fortunate enough to be able to send a couple dollars home, here and there, and help out with things while I was incarcerated. And, one of the hardest things, and I remember seeing this from another YouTuber, I don't remember which one before I went to prison, but they said one of the most difficult struggles for the newly incarcerated is realizing that the influence and power you had in life as a spouse, as a parent, as a caretaker, all that is stripped from you when you go to prison. And so you have to hand over those reins to someone else and really just trust that they're going to do the right thing and support them. Even if I don't agree with 100% of the way my son was parented in my absence, but at the end of the day, he wasn't abused or neglected. And when I came home, he was a well-adjusted kid. So I can be nothing but humble and grateful and just shut up and take it on the chin. It is what it is. You know what I mean? And now that I'm fresh home, I've been home less than 3 months. It's really interesting reintegrating my position in life as a caretaker for my elderly mother, as someone who assists their brother, someone who assists their adult daughter, and you know, as a single parent to my 6-year-old, you know, you can't just come home and snatch back the reins. You have to really kind of integrate yourself into these roles, or you're going to overwhelm yourself and really overwhelm your loved ones with the dramatic change. And I think that's a whole thing, a whole process in and of itself that we have to go through this, especially women.